We continue now at the top of Daf Nun Zayin Amud Aleph and Maseches Zvachim. This is Zvachim Daf 57a. On the previous Amud, the Mishnah said that Bechor and Ma'aser Behema and Karban Pesach, they require one application of blood, and that application of blood to the outer Mizbeach, that has to be done in the area of the Mizbeach where there is a Yesod, where there is a base to the Mizbeach. That comes to exclude the southeastern corner of the Mizbeach where there was no Yesod. And the Gemara asked on the previous Amud, from where do we know that there's a requirement that it be Keneged HaYesod? And the Gemara said we learn it out from a Gzeira Shava, Zrika from Karban Ola. It says Zrika by Bechor, and it says Zrika by Ola. And the Gemara now continues and says V'Ola Gufa Minola. Now Ola itself, from where do we know that the application of the blood needs to be Keneged HaYesod? T'chsiv, as it's written in the Pasuk, El Yesod Mizbach HaOla. It says in the Pasuk, Yesod Mizbach HaOla, Limed Al Ola Schova, Sheta'una Yesod. This teaches that when you have a Karban Ola that's an obligation, it requires the Yesod of the Mizbeach. And Rashi explains, Va'ola gufa minolan kedei nasba. Rashi says that here we're just bringing this pasuk, but it's not the real source. It's just part of the derivation along the way. Because we actually learned it earlier in the parak from a kal v'chomer. V'haikra l'drasha achrina ukim. Then we actually use this pasuk that's being brought over here for a different drasha. V'kitzer dvarim hu denakat lamikra. And over here they're giving an abridged version of that Gemara ilav kal v'chomer. Because if not for that kal v'chomer, havi alfinan lamina, then we would have learned it from this pasuk. In any case, the point over here is that we're learning from Karban Ola, and just like we see by Karban Ola that there's a requirement of Yesod, so too when it comes to Bechor, there's a requirement of Yesod. And the Gemara continues and asks, but if you're learning from Karban Ola, by Karban Ola it has to be two applications of blood, which are four. What that means is that the blood is applied to the corners of the Mizbeach, which then go on the four walls of the Mizbeach, two applications which are four. So too we should say over here, there should be a requirement of two applications which are four. We're saying there's only one application of blood when it comes to Bechor. And the Gemara answers, Amar Abaya says, why does it have to write Saviv around the Mizbeach are the applications by Ola, and Saviv Bechatos, it also writes Saviv by Karban Chatos. Have a Shnei Ksuvin Haboin Ke'echad, that's two psukim that essentially teach the same thing. V'chol Shnei Ksuvin Haboin Ke'echad Ein Malamd, and anytime you have two psukim that teach the same thing, we don't learn from there. Essentially, the psukim are saying that it applies only in these two cases, but don't extend it any further. The Gemara continues, now that works according to the one who says Shnei Ksuvin Haboin Ke'echad Ein Malamdin. But according to the one who says that Shnei Ksuvin Haboin Ke'echad, you could learn to other cases, essentially through like a Mamatzinu. We say just like we find over here, so too over here. So Ma'ikol Amemar, so what are we going to say according to the one who says Malamdin? And the Gemara says to that, have a Asham Shlosha. It actually says by Asham a third time, Ushlosha Vada Ein Malamdin. If you have three psukim, Shlosha Ksuvin Haboin Ke'echad, they certainly do not teach, and that's why we do not derive, again, from Karban Ola, we are not going to derive that over here by Bechor, it's Shtei Matana, Shein Arba, rather, it's just going to be one application of blood when it comes to Bechor. And Rashi explains, Ima Afkan, the Bechor Zrika Me'ola Yalfinan, because again, Bechor is being learned the Gzeira Shava of Zrika from Ola, so we should say, Malhalan Dalin Matanos Shtayim Sheinar, but just like over there, it's two applications which are four. And then the Gemara said, it says, Saviv Bechatos B'miluim Uva Ola, it says, Saviv by Chatos, by the Miluim, means by the inauguration of the Mishkan, and then also by the Karban Ola, it says, it's Shtei Ksuvim Haboin Ke'echad, Misaviv Shaminan Bei Dalin Matanos Shesove B'dama Ruchos HaMizbeach. Rashi says the word Saviv indicates four applications of blood, because it essentially means that it's on the four walls of the Mizbeach that the blood is applied. Again, that's the idea of Shtei Matanos Shehin Arba, two applications of blood which are four. Ein Malamdin, you can't learn from Shnei Ksuvin Haboin Ke'echad. V'yafagav dehachal lav b'binyanav anu boin lilmod. Now Rashi notes, even though over here we're not trying to learn from Karban Ola through a binyanav, usually Shnei Ksuvin Haboin Ke'echad means that we should learn from a Mamotzinu. It says it over here, just like it says it over here, so too over there. And then we say, well, you can't say that because it's Shnei Ksuvin, there's actually two sources, and Shnei Ksuvin Ein Malamdin. But over here, we weren't learning from a Mamotzinu from Ola. We weren't simply saying, since this is the halacha by Ola, that should be the halacha by Bechor. We were saying a Gzeira Shava to learn from Ola. So that's why Rashi is saying, even though over here it's not a binyanav, it's not a Mamatzinu that we're trying to learn. Ashmin and Abaye, the Shnei Ksuvin Haboin Ke'echad Ein Malamdin, afilu b'Gzeira Shava. Abaye is teaching us that when you have Shnei Ksuvin Haboin Ke'echad, it doesn't teach to another case, even through a Gzeira Shava. Also, hadavar shenichta b'shnei, in that particular matter which is written by both of them, even through a gzeira shava, we say shnei ksuvin haboin ke'echad is ein melamdin. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said habechor nechol lekohanim, the firstborn animal is eaten by the kohanim, and the Gemara says Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught minayin lebechor shenechol l'shnei yomim v'layla. From where do we know that bechor is eaten for 2 days and a night? Shenemar, as it says in the pasuk, this is a pasuk by bechor. It says uvesoram yelach kachazei hatnufa ucheshok hayom, and it says their meat is to you like the chazei hatnufa, which is the breast that is waved, and like the shok hayom, and like the right thigh. And so the Brisa says hikishu hakosov lechazav v'shok shel shlamim. What the pasuk over here is doing is comparing the meat of the bechor to the breast and the thigh of the korban shlamim. Ma shlamim necholin l'shnei yomim v'laylo echad, just like the shlamim is eaten for 2 days and a night. Af bechor, so too the firstborn animal nechol l'shnei yomim v'laylo echad. It's eaten for 2 days and a night. And the Brisa continues, V'zu she'ela nish'alu lifnei chachamim b'keren b'yavna. This question was asked before the sages in Keren b'yavna. Bechor l'kama nechol, a bechor, for how long is it eaten? Nana Rabbi Tarfon v'yamar. Rabbi Tarfon answered and said as follows: L'shnei yomim v'laylo echad, it's eaten for 2 days and 1 night. Hayasham talmud echad sheba lebeis hamedrash lifnei chachamim. There was a certain talmud who came to the beis medrash before the chachamim tchila first. Rabbi Yossi Haglili Shimon, his name was Rabbi Yossi Haglili. Amar lo, he said to him, Rabbi minayin lach. He said, Rabbi, from where do you know this? How do you know that the bechor is eaten for 2 days and a night? Amar lo, he said to him, Bini, my son, shlamim kodshim kalim. Shlamim is of lesser kedusha. Uvechor kodshim kalim, and bechor also is of lesser kedusha. And so we compare the two. Ma shlamim necholin l'shnei yomim v'laylo echad, just like shlamim is eaten for 2 days and a night. Af bechor nechol l'shnei yomim v'laylo echad, so too bechor is eaten for 2 days and a night. Amar lo, he said to him, Rebbe, bechor matana l'kohen. He said, Rebbe, the bechor is a gift to the kohen. V'chatos v'yasham matana l'kohen, and chatos and asham, they are also gifts to the kohen. Ma chatos v'yasham l'yom v'layla, so we should compare as follows. Just like chatos and asham is for a day and a night, af bechor l'yom v'layla, so too bechor should be for 1 day and a night. Amarlo, he said back to him, Nidon davar midavar, we should learn things that are similar from one another. Vinil midavar midavar, and therefore we should learn one thing from the other as follows. Ma shlamim ein boin al chet. Shlamim, just like shlamim does not come for a sin. Af bechor eino bo al chet. So to bechor, it doesn't come for a sin, and so therefore that is a similarity between them. And so we say, Ma shlamim necholim l'shnei yomim v'laylo echad, just like shlamim is eaten for 2 days and a night. Af bechor nechol l'shnei yomim v'laylo echad, so too bechor is eaten for 2 days and a night. Amar lo, he said back to him, Rebbe, nidon davar midavar. He said, Rebbe, we should learn things that are similar from one another. Yilma davar midavar, and therefore we should learn something from something else as follows. Chatos v'yasham matana l'kohen, chatos and asham, they are given as a gift to the kohen. Uvechor matana l'kohen, and the bechor is given as a gift to the kohen. Ma chatos v'yasham ein boin neder unedava, and just like chatzos and asham, they're not given as donations. Af bechor eino beneder unedava, so to bechor is not a donation; it's an obligation. And so machatzos v'yasham necholun liyom echad, just like chatzos and asham is just 1 day. Af bechor nechol liyom echad, so to bechor should be 1 day. And the Brisa continues: Kafatz Rabbi Akiva jumped, Rabbi Akiva entered. V'nistalik Rabbi Tarfon, and Rabbi Tarfon left. And Amar lo, he said to him, Harehu Omer. It says in the pasuk, Uvesaram yelach. Again, it says Uvesaram yelach. You're going to have the meat of the bechor. He kishon hakasav lechaze v'shok shel shlamim. As we said above, that's a comparison. The pasuk is comparing it to the chaze and the shok of the shlamim. Ma shlamim necholin l'shnei yamim v'laylo echad. Just like shlamim is eaten for 2 days and a night. Af bechor nechol l'shnei yamim v'laylo echad. So too bechor is eaten for 2 days and a night. Amar lo, he said to him, He kishato lechaze v'shok shel shlamim. You're comparing it to the chaze and the shok of the shlamim. V'ani ma kisho lechaze v'shok shel toda. But I'll compare it to the chaz and the shok of the korban toda. And we can say as follows: Ma toda necheles liyom v'layla, just like a toda is eaten for a day and a night. Af bechor nechol liyom v'layla, so too bechor should be eaten for 1 day and a night. Amar lo, he said to him, Harehu Omer, it says in the pasuk, Uvesaram yelach, again it says, Uvesaram yelach, the meat is for you. She'ein talmud lomar l'chayeh, that the pasuk doesn't need to say l'chayeh, it seems to be repeating itself. Uma talmud lomar l'chayeh, why does the pasuk say l'chayeh? Why does it repeat essentially the same idea? Hosef hakosef havoya acheres bebechor. The pasuk is adding another havoya, another state of existence, so to speak, by bechor, meaning we're adding another day. It's not just 1 day and a night; it is 2 days and a night. And the Brisa continues, "Ucheshenemru devarim lefnei Rabbi Yishmael." When these matters were said before Rabbi Yishmael, when these words were said before Rabbi Yishmael, Amar Leni said to them, "Tzu ve'imru lo Rabbi Akiva." Go and tell Rabbi Akiva that toisa, that you're actually making a mistake, because you Rabbi Akiva are admitting that you could have learned from the Karban Toda. That was implied in the exchange, and then Rabbi Akiva had to explain why we don't learn, why we instead say that there's an additional day when it comes to Bechor. But that's a mistake to say that you can learn from Toda, because Toda mehechan lamda, because where is Toda itself learned from? Mishlamim, it itself is learned from Shlamim. V'chi davar alamid behekish chozer malamid behekish. Can something that's learned from a hekish, can it teach through a hekish? And so therefore you could never have learned from Toda. Ha'ein alecha lidon b'lashon achron ela b'lashon rishon. Therefore you could not have learned in that latter way. You have to learn in the original way. And Rashi explains, "Uvesaram yelach," and the meat will be for you. But Bechor ksiv, again, that's written by Bechor, and it's compared l'chaz of shok shel shlamim. It's compared to the chaz and the shok of the shlamim. Ulekamei parich l'shel Toda akshinan. The Gemara later will ask, we should compare it to Toda. Bekerem, again, it said Kerem b'yavne. Talmidei chachamim yoshvin shuros kekerem. The reason it's called Kerem b'yavne is because the Talmidei chachamim would sit in rows like a vineyard. Kach mefurish b'berachos Yerushalmi. That's explained in the Yerushalmi and Brachos. Shebal lebeis hamedrash tchila, that came to the Beis Medrash first. Again, the Brisa said that there was a student who came first to the Beis Medrash, and his name was Rabbi Yossi Aglili. He haisa techilas biyasu lefnei b'yavne. This was the first time he entered in Yavne. That's what the Brisa means. It doesn't mean to say that he was the first student to enter the Beis Medrash. It means that this was the first time that he entered the Beis Medrash. The chatas v'yasham matana l'kohen, and chatas and asham, they're a gift to the kohen. So maybe we should compare Bechor to chatas and asham. The Brisa said aval shlamim lebailim, whereas shlamim goes to the bailim, it goes to the owners. Nidon davar midavar, the Brisa said we should learn one thing from another thing. Kilomar shekemoso v'domalo, the Brisa just means to say we should learn things from one another that are similar. Ein boin al chet, they don't come on a sin. Kechatas v'yasham, the chatas and asham, they come for a sin. And eino ba b'neder u'v'nedava, the Brisa said they don't come as a neder and a nedava as donations. La'afuke shlamim de boin b'neder u'v'nedava, as opposed to shlamim which come as donations. They can come voluntarily, they're brought. V'nistalik, nistalik over here means that he was removed. Rashi says it really just means he was silent. Again, it means to say that Rabbi Akiva was the one that began to speak now. He kisho hakosov, and so he said that there's a comparison in the pasuk. Ve'ein meshivan ala hekesh. The idea over there was, once you have a comparison in the pasuk, so we don't refute comparisons by saying that they're not similar. Tosef lo hakosov. Then Rabbi Akiva said that the pasuk adds on. Kilomar means to say, moda ani ledvarecha. I admit to what you're saying. Shel lechaz v'shok shel toda tzrichin anu lahakisha. That we should really be comparing to the chaz and the shok of the Toda. The tafasta mua tafasta, because you should take what is less, meaning to say the Toda, that's for 1 day, and the shlamim is for 2 days. We should really learn from the Toda, which is less. Miu, but nevertheless, midahadar hakasa b'seifid, the cross, since at the end of the pasuk it says l'chayiyah, it says the words l'chayiyah, the lo itzrich, that's not necessary, d'aksib b'reisha yelach, because it already says in the beginning yelach. So therefore, hosif lo hakasav havoya acheres, the pasuk is saying there's another havoya, there's another state of existence, so to speak, kimozu, just like this, habalo behekish, which is learned through the hekish, and so again that tells us that a day is supposed to be added. And Rashi continues, Hachi Garcina, and this is the proper text, Ukeshenemru devarim lefnei Rabbi Yishmael, when this was said before Rabbi Yishmael, Amar Lemi said to them, Tzu ve'imru lo Rabbi Akiva, go and tell Rabbi Akiva, Ta'isa, you're making a mistake, Toda mehechan lamda mishlamim, Toda from where we learn Toda? We learn it from Shlamim, V'davar halamid behekish, Chozer malamid behekish, Ein olecha, you can't learn from a hekish, something that's learned from a hekish. And Rashi explains, Ta'isa b'mesha chazarta bach mehekish shlamim, v'yatam akisha l'toda, you're making a mistake that you're retracting from the comparison to Shlamim and instead suggesting that it could have been learned from Toda. The lo lamdu akasav elami Shlamim. It has to be that the pasuk is learning only from Shlamim. De'imi Toda chazav eshok lo ksiba, because by Toda it doesn't even say anything about the chazav eshok. It doesn't say anything about the breast and the thigh. Elami de'iskish Toda l'Shlamim. It's only from the fact that Toda is compared to Shlamim. Nafkalon ba chazav eshok, but Torah's Kohanim. That's where we learn our chazav eshok in Torah's Kohanim. The Tanya, as we learned in the Brisa, lefisha yatsa Toda lidon bedavar hachad. Since Toda is unique, that there's bread that accompanies Yachol Ein Lach Ba Ela Chidusha, one might think you only have that which is unique and nothing else. Talmud Lomar Torah Zevach Hashlamim. It says Torah Zevach Hashlamim Imal Toda, and it says Imal Toda compares the two. Ma Shlamim Tu'unim Smicho Nesachim Utunufas Chazav Eshok Af Toda, just like Shlamim has, and again Chazav Eshok, so too when it comes to the Toda, and so therefore that itself is learned from a Hekish. V'davar Halamid Behekish Yachzer V'Yilman Ala Bechor Behekish. hekesh le'achel liyom v'layla. Again, over here you have another hekesh that you want to learn to bechor. That bechor is going to be a day and a night. You can't do a hekesh, a double hekesh. So ein alecha laduna b'lashon achron lahakisha l'chaz v'shok shel toda. You shouldn't do that latter version comparing to the chaz and the shok of the toda. Ella b'lashon rishon l'shel shlamim. Rather, you should instead compare it to the first version. You should compare it to a shlamim. And the Gemara continues, Rabbi Yishmael, Hai l'chayiyah, my Ovid lay. What does Rabbi Yishmael do with the pasuk of l'chayiyah? Again, Rabbi Akiva used l'chayiyah because Rabbi Akiva said you could have learned from Toda. How do we know to learn from shlamim? How do we know to have that extra day? We learn it from l'chayiyah. So what does Rabbi Yishmael do with l'chayiyah? Because again, Rabbi Yishmael says that we never would have learned from Toda. And the Gemara says, Limed al bechor bal mum, shehu matana l'kohen, shalom matzinu b'chol Torah. The pasuk of l'chayiyah teaches that a bechor that has a blemish that also is gifted to the Kohen, that we don't find in the Torah. This is the source. The fact that it says l'chayiyah belongs to you, it belongs to the Kohen. Rashi explains, Shalom matzinu l'lamdo b'chol Torah kula. Alamikan, we have no source for that in the Torah except for here. That is derived from l'chayiyah. And so the Gemara continues and asks for Rabbi Akiva. So according to Rabbi Akiva, where is he going to learn out that the bechor bal mum is a gift to the Kohen? Yolif leimi besaram. He learns it out from the word besaram. That's in plural. Their meat. Chad tam v'chad bal mum. That refers to both the tam, the bechor without a blemish, and also the bechor with a blemish. Both of them are gifted to the Kohen. Rabbi Yishmael, now Rabbi Yishmael, mi besaram dehanach bechoros kamar. All the pasuk means when it says besaram, which is plural, it just means the various types of animals that might be bechor. It's not referring to tam and bal mum. And Rashi explains dehanach bechoros, bechor shor, bechor kesef, bechor eis, the various animals, those kinds of bechor. V'chol hashon rabim dekra alayu kai. The plural in the pasuk is going on the animals. Lo Rabbi Yishmael, according to Rabbi Yishmael. V'achanami aminan gabe ves domam ves chelbam. Lo Rabbi Yishmael. We said something similar by the words domam and chelbam, according to Rabbi Yishmael, beperak beis Shammai earlier in perak beis Shammai. And the Gemara continues and asks, "B'maika miflagi, what is the root of the machlokus between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yishmael?" And Rashi explains, "B'maika miflagi, what are they arguing about? Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva, what are Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva arguing about? The al karchach ein hekesh chozer malamed behekesh, because we know that a hekesh cannot teach through another hekesh. Rabbi Akiva my time a gomerlo." So the Gemara here is really asking, why is it that Rabbi Akiva is willing to learn a hekesh from a hekesh again? Rabbi Akiva was willing, in theory, to learn from carbon toda to bechor, and the problem is toda itself was learned from shlamim through a hekesh. So you have a hekesh to another hekesh. How is it that Rabbi Akiva was willing to learn that and not Rabbi Yishmael? What exactly is the machlokus? And the Gemara continues and explains, Ma'ar Savar, one holds, hey menu v'davar acher, from it and something else, have a hekesh that is considered to be a hekesh. Or Ma'ar Savar, and the other one holds, lo have a hekesh that is not considered to be a hekesh. And Rashi explains, hey menu v'davar acher means as follows, achilas chazav v'shok shel toda liyom v'layla. When we're talking about the eating of the chaz and the shok of the carbon toda for a day and the night, that is what we're talking about, and then we're going to derive from toda to bechor. Hey menu v'davar acher he midua k'tzas hamelamed kasaba, means to say some of it is written by toda. It's not entirely. That whole concept of chaz of a shok of toda eaten for a day and a night, it's not that the entire concept is learned from shlamim. Some of it is written by toda. D'chsiv b'toda yom v'layla, because it does say by toda a day and a night. Uksas hilamedem makam acher, but it's somewhat learned from shlamim. Ma'hi chaz v'shok the lo ksiba, because it doesn't say chaz v'shok by toda. That part is learned from shlamim. So here you have a situation where a halacha by toda is learned partially from within toda itself and partially from shlamim. The part that's coming from shlamim is the chaz v'shok. The yom v'layla is coming from toda itself, and now we are then trying to derive to bechor that the meat is eaten for a day and a night, and that is the question. So Rabbi Yishmael savar hekesh. Rabbi Yishmael says that is a hekesh. So nimsa masha chaz v'shok necholin liyom v'layla min hahekesh lama. Rabbi Yishmael understands that the idea that the chaz v'shok is eaten for a day and a night by toda ultimately is considered to be a hekesh, even though again the day and the night part was mentioned by toda itself, but it's still considered to be a hekesh. Therefore, you have a problem of a double hekesh. Rabbi Akiva savar, but Rabbi Akiva holds hoel v'yom v'layla b'toda ksiv, since it says a day and a night by toda, afagav de chaz v'shok lamda behekesh, even though chaz v'shok are learned through a hekesh, lo haviz man achilas chaz v'shok shel toda davar halamed behekesh, but still the time frame that you're allowed to eat the chaz v'shok of a toda, that is not considered to be something that's learned from a hekesh. That is the machlokas between Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva. And the Gemara continues, b'shalom l'man damar lo have a hekesh. I understand according to the one who says it's not a hekesh. Again, that is Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva says that if some of the halachas are learned internally, that's not considered a hekesh and will not be a problem of a double hekesh. hekesh. So it makes sense the following by Yom Kippur, by the avoda of the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur. Hainu d'chsiv, that's what's written in the pasuk v'chein ya'asa lo al moed. It says the same procedure is done in the Ol Moed. It's talking about the fact that there's a comparison between the procedure in the Kodesh Kadoshim, lefnai v'lefnim, and the procedure in the Ol Moed and the procedure in the Heichal itself. And that comparison is as follows: Kashem shemaza lefnai v'lefnim achas lamala v'sheva lamata. Just like he sprinkles the blood lefnai v'lefnim in the Kodesh Kadoshim once above and 7 below, midam hapor from the blood of the bull. Kach maza beheichal. It's the same procedure in the Heichal. Uchashem shelefnai v'lefnim achas lamala v'sheva lamata midam hasoyer. And just like lefnai v'lefnim, it's 1 above and 7 below from the blood of the he-goat. Kach maza beheichal. The same thing is true in the Heichal. That essentially would be a problem of a double hekesh, but it's not a problem of a double hekesh because, again, if you have heimenu v'davar acher, that's not considered to be a hekesh. Ela l'man damar have a hekesh ma'ikol l'meimer, but according to the one who says that it is a hekesh, what are we going to say? And the Gemara says to that, Mekomosu degamri mehadadi, it's the locations that are learned from one another. And Rashi explains, Keshem shemazel lefnai v'lefnim, just like he sprinkles lefnai v'lefnim in the Kodesh Kadoshim, v'lefnai v'lefnim gufei, and lefnai v'lefnim itself, achas l'mala v'sheva l'mata bepor v'soyer, beheimenu v'davar acher gamar, by both the par and the sar in terms of the 1 above and the 7 below, it is a case of heimenu v'davar acher, de bifnim l'mala bepar lo ksibbe minyana, because bifnim, in terms of lamala by the bull, it's not written over there the number. Dechsiv v'hiza betzbo al pnei hakapores v'kedma v'lefnei hakapores yaze sheva pa'amim. It just says he's going to sprinkle v'sheva lamata hu dechsiv b'ei. It only says the 7 that are below. Uv'sir chatos lamala hu dechsiv, and by the sir chatos it says the above. V'hiza oso al hakapores v'lefnei hakapores oso chadamashma. That's one application. V'lefnei hakapores lo ksiv sheva, but lefnei hakapores it doesn't say 7, and so there are parts that are written and there are parts that are missing. And so we make a comparison between the two. We learn from one another. Do for the blood of the seir like you do for the blood of the par. They're compared. And so you see that the avoda that's done with the par and the sor bifnim inside, that is a himenu v'davar acher type of limud. The mixas avoda kol echad ksuva bo mixas alam mechavero. Some of it is written and some of it's written by the other one, and we learn v'hadar migmar heichal mipanim, and then we're going to learn what's done in the heichal from what's done lefnai v'lefnim behekesha through a hekesh. Dechein yasa lo moed. That's the hekesh of do the same thing in the old moed. Alma heimenu v'davar acher lo hekesha chashav lo. So you see that when you have a heimenu v'davar acher situation, it's not considered to be like a hekesh. Ela l'man damar have a hekesh, but according to the one who says it is considered a hekesh, heichi hadar heichal v'gamar minei behekesha. How can the heichal be learned from another hekesh? That should be the problem of a double hekesh. And the Gemara answered, it's the locations that are learned from one another. This is not a problem of teaching again through a hekesh. The hekesh kamo behemos iskish, because the first hekesh there was a comparison of the animals. And the later hekesh is a comparison of locations, meaning comparing lefnai v'lefnim to the heichal. But when it comes to the toda and bechor, chaza v'shok shel toda huk shel bechor, the chaza and the shok of the toda are compared to the bechor. And that itself is learned from a hekesh from shlamim, and therefore it poses more of a problem in that case. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Nun Zayin Amid Beis.